Welcome to the Mango Effect podcast, where every week we talk about the path to living a limitless life and having the freedom to do it your way. No topics are off limits. We get into the practical, the hypothetical, and the downright juicy stuff. I'm Mindy Rosser, your host and lifestyle cheerleader, and I'm here today to talk about why M is for mango. So if you like mangoes, you probably do, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. You will be excited to know that I have an acronym for mango. And when I try to describe the mango effect, it's always been something a little bit tricky, like trying to figure out how to describe it. I was actually working with my book coach, Deborah Jean Rogers. Shout out, Deborah. She is fantastic. And we were talking a lot about what to do with my book, because a lot of what I've been talking about on the podcast, there are topics in here that I've been discussing that I think are going to be excellent, in a written form. So she's like, Mindy, why don't you figure out an acronym for mango? And I'm like, brilliant. I love acronyms. And so we actually started kind of brainstorming some ideas on what to put for mango, and M-A-N-G-O. So one of the things with mangoes, there really are not any perfect mangoes. I've had some pretty near perfect mangoes, but there are not perfect lifestyles either. And when I think of a mango, a lot of you know that's kind of the metaphor for lifestyle here on the podcast. It's really about trying out variations, figuring out which type of mango you like. There are a bazillion varieties. Whether you like them sliced or cubed, ripe or sour, fresh or pureed, it's like cooking. You really get to figure out exactly what you're in the mood for and what you want to eat. Similar, when you successfully create your dream life, your dream lifestyle, you are where you are supposed to be. You're doing exactly what you're meant to do. You're having more fun than you could imagine. You are expressing the confidence that you know your purpose, and you are leaving a living legacy to those who follow in your footsteps. So this is something that I think is really important to understand about mangoes and how you apply the acronym. It's not about how Mindy applies the acronym. It's really about how you understand and interpret these concepts. But I think it's a really good framework for charting your life path. It is never easy. You've heard me talk about the ups and downs on the podcast, and I keep it real here. You know what's going on in my life a lot of the time. So there's always a chance that something is just not going to work out as you intended. Sometimes you make a cross-country move and you realize it was actually better where you left. You may start a business and you find out that it's at least twice as much work as having a full-time job with 10 times the stress, because you have no idea what to expect in the future. Or you may buy your first rental property and everything that could go wrong does go wrong, and you lose tens of thousands on your first deal. So there are things that are going to happen in life that we just have to be ready for, and we cannot perfectly craft it. So when you're following the mango way, when you are living life like the mango effect and experiencing that, how does that feel? It's not about perfection. It's not about charting it perfectly, because no matter how good we are at planning, it's never going to be perfect. It's really about creating an amazing life while minimizing the risks or the downsides. So when do you decide to play it safe versus go all in? I know the fear. I know the trepidation. I've been through it too. I know exactly how it feels to take that risk and it completely backfires and you're like, I shouldn't have done that. But that's part of trying things. That's part of discovering. That's part of experiencing life. So what is this acronym? We're going to go through it first, and then I'll go deeper into what I think and how I interpret each of them. So M is for mindful. A is for action. N is for nourish. G is for gutsy. And O is for opportunity. All right, so M is for mindful. Why do we start there? I don't feel like anybody accidentally happens upon their dream life. It's not like you wake up one day and go, wow, I'm living my dream life right now, and I have no idea how this happened. That's not how it works. Most of us are going to face a lot of different challenges and circumstances. We're also going to have some ups and downs, but it's up to us to determine how to create that life that we were given and what we can feasibly achieve realistically. Too many people think that anything is possible for everyone, but that's not reality. We each have very specific assets that we can use to our advantage, and when we recognize them for what they are, we also realize what our weaknesses are. And so we know how to put them all together, and we are mindful about that. So mindfulness is not just about living in the moment or doing meditation. It's more about being mindful of who you are, what your assets are, what cards you were dealt in life. And then you can kind of put all of that together into an amazing life and figure out how best to play your hand. So on this note, there are days when I have a ton of regrets that I did not graduate with an accredited degree because, as many of you know, I graduated from like a seminary and biblical studies, and I am definitely more on the atheistic, agnostic side of things. So every once in a while, I will actually catch myself in a phase where this really, really bothers me. And then recently, as you all know, if you listen to some of the prior episodes to this one, I'm actually going to be going back to school to take care of that. And I think it's a really powerful thing because I'm looking at something that I feel like is missing in my past, but I'm being mindful about it and making a choice now to go back, take care of that degree, get that degree that I've always wanted, and move on with my life. So I think it's really about mindful choices, but understanding why. And sometimes I've talked about going back to school before, and I've thought about it before, but it just never was the right time. It wasn't the right frame of mind. And so mindfulness, I think, just needs to be woven into everything we do. How does this decision or thing we're considering actually fit into the big scope of our life? And if it's something that is that meaningful, and for me, going back to school is that meaningful, that I'm willing to change just about all aspects of my lifestyle to make that happen, okay, that's something I need to pay attention to. So when you are mindful about how you approach every single decision in your life, it actually gets easier to make better decisions because you can zoom out, you can see the big picture, you can get honest with yourself, you can feel confident that you're making the right choice for you right now. And I think the beauty of kind of flowing with your decisions is that you can always make a course correction down the road. But the thing is, you always want to have a contingency plan. So if something doesn't work out, what is your exit strategy? Ideally, you want to have a few exit strategies. This is how you approach things from a mindful perspective. So for example, if you are looking at let's talk about being an online business owner. Maybe you want to be a digital entrepreneur. You might have heard me talk about it in the past. Definitely pros and cons to it. But you realize, okay, I want to do this whole launching thing. So to launch, especially if you don't have a big audience, you are going to need to pay for traffic to get enough people into your launch so you get enough people at the bottom of the funnel who buy your product. So do you have to be mindful about this? Yes, I see a lot of people getting into that space. Talked about it before, where they just think, oh, all I need to do is, have a list of 100 people and I will just be able to sell my products to infinity and beyond and make 6-7 figures in 1 year. It's just not that easy, at least for most of us. And so I think being mindful about that, it's preparing yourself. Okay, if I'm going to make this leap, I've got to feel really confident in my product. I've got to do my homework. I've got to spend money in advertising. I may need some high-level business coaching. Do I actually like launching? Do I actually like selling? All of these things need to be taken into consideration when you are making a decision, when you are being mindful. And making a decision can be very, very simple. It can also be very challenging because a lot of factors come into play. But it all starts with mindfulness. And too many times, I think we try to push through something we actually don't enjoy or don't find valuable because we have this misconception that we have to hustle our way to the top. And we believe that the way we're doing it is the only way. And it never is. There are always more options than you think. So even if they are not immediately obvious, it's up to you to explore those options and to be very, very mindful. All right, let's move into A is for action. So when you want something good to happen, you take action. Like there's no other way to really make it happen. I don't believe the whole manifest the secret actually works as some people describe it to. I know there's a lot of discussion, I should say, around the secret. And some people are like, oh, yes, it totally works. Others are like, yeah, I'm a little bit of a skeptic. So when it comes to making something happen in your life, you have to take some type of action. Even if you are manifesting it, you are taking an action and actually putting your brain power towards thinking about something that you want to happen. Most of the time we have to take actual action. Action is actually one of my favorite words, but it also gets me into a bit of trouble sometimes because it is my default. So if I often like to skip over the mindfulness part and go straight to the action. So when something is not going my way, it's important for me to start with a bit of mindfulness to ensure I don't take the wrong type of action forward. Because not all action is created equal. If you take too many actions in a bunch of different directions, you're going to be known as an action taker, but you're not going to get the results you expected to show for all that doing. So I don't know about you, but do you know anyone who is incredibly busy, but it looks like they are always just spinning their wheels and never making progress forward? This is a case of the action taker without direction, which is a very tempting proposition, especially when you feel the urge that something has to change, but you're not sure exactly what. A lot of times it's easier to do something rather than taking a moment to pause, maybe listen to your gut and choose your next best move. So there are some of our friends here on the North Shore who always seem to be, we call it trying on friends. So what they will do, it's like we'll get together in these gatherings. And for a while, we were the friends that they were trying on. And they get really excited and they want to hang out all the time. They want to know everything about you. You're like, oh my gosh, you're asking me like really personal questions here. Do you like want to be me? Are you trying to be us? And it can feel almost a little bit creepy. And I think that's good because in their mind, they're thinking, okay, I need to be around the 5 people, that are closest to you. That's who you're going to become. So I feel like they're always trying to become other people and take random actions, but not realizing that we're all just kind of human. And you may enjoy hanging out with us for a while, but you don't really actually want to be with us. And then every time we hung out with them, they had like a brand new idea. They were pursuing with a vengeance. I felt like every time we would talk to them, it was, one week they're quitting their company of 15 plus years. The next week they're starting a website with a real estate investing business. Pretty soon after that, they want to start like a faux coffee company, like pretend coffee beans that taste like coffee but aren't coffee. Then they're like doing a van renovation because we did a van renovation, and it's like they never got traction on any of their ideas, but they just keep spinning their wheels because it's like they're always searching for friends with the magic bullet. They're searching for, different aspects of their career or business with a vengeance, and it's just always the latest and greatest idea and never really making progress forward. So keep in mind, we don't want to be like that. We definitely want to be those types that are incredibly thoughtful. Like we're starting with mindfulness, then we're taking mindful action. So when you take action, you have to make sure it's the right action. And I like to talk about this. You've heard me on the podcast before. If you listen to some other episodes, talk about running experiments, lifestyle experiments, a simple experiment that will tell you whether or not it's a viable action that will actually lead to the life and business, career, family, relationship, whatever it is that you want. You think you want a business after listening to an inspiring podcast where someone doubled their income in 90 days. And then you quickly decide to quit your job, live off your savings, go at it on your own. And that's just a little too drastic. The people modeling this type of behavior for us, they often tend to tell that same story where they were $50,000 in debt. They had this idea. They built this team. They bet their life savings, which turned out to be the best decision they ever made. I just don't fall into that camp. I'm a little bit more skeptical when it comes to that type of thing. So when it comes to action taking, the type that is ideal is that you want to be incredibly mindful. You want to know where you're going. Now, where you actually end up may be very different from where you think you're going at the start, but you want to take your best guess at, okay, how do I get from here to there in the most effective way possible that is the most pleasant, that is the most ideal for everyone involved. That takes a little bit of planning. It's not about getting these get-rich-quick schemes or fall in love with your soulmate in 30 days. It's nothing like that. This is about life planning. This is about being very level-headed before you start taking drastic action, especially if it's big action. Like if you are physically moving, if you are changing your career, if you are getting into a long-term relationship, deciding to have children or not have children, deciding whether or not you want to start a business, all of that is action, and you need to take that mindful step before you jump into action. All right, now let's talk about N is for nourish. Nourish. Okay. Mindfulness, action, nourish. What tends to happen a lot in our culture is that we are told to push ourselves, to drive ourselves to the brink of what's possible, to redefine the boundaries. And I feel like sometimes it's very masculine driven. Not that I have anything against masculinity. I'm pretty masculine in myself. I'm masculine, feminine, all of them all wrapped together. But sometimes we take these messages and they are supposed to inspire us, like we can do anything. But often they have the opposite effect, and we start like beating ourselves up because we aren't good enough, we're not tough enough, we're not fast enough. It's always like this matter of willpower versus actually tuning in to what our bodies and minds actually want. So when I think about nourishing myself, I really think about giving myself as much nutrient density as possible every day. And I'm a little bit of a health nut, just a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm that weird person that tracks my food. And it's not because I'm obsessed with like trying to stay skinny or like get jacked or get fit. I mean, those are all side effects of being healthy, for some of us. And it's more about, for me, like getting micronutrients. So I'm really obsessed with plugging in all of the food I've eaten during the day and my supplements too. And then I want to see the percentage, like how much of my daily vitamin D did I get today? Did I hit my omega-3 count? Did I get enough omega-6s? Where is my saturated fat? Did I have enough polyunsaturated fat? Like I am that like crazy nerd when it comes to health. And so for me, it's really fun because I'm tracking my food out of curiosity and empowerment, not because I'm just trying to like lose weight or change aesthetics or anything like that. And so this is something when I think of Nourish, I think, okay, if I'm going to eat a certain volume of food today, a certain amount of food, a certain number of meals, how can I get the most bang for my buck? Like, how can I give myself the most nutrients I can in the most enjoyable way and really enjoy the process? Because I actually struggled with an eating disorder and a lot of body dysmorphia during my teens and 20s. And I used to eat the nastiest food. Oh, it's terrible. I would take, on a side note, I would take like frozen green beans, put mustard on them because I didn't want to eat any fat. I would boil chicken breasts. And that would, in a little teeny tiny bit of sweet potato or rice with like nothing, no flavor on it. And so the green beans, and I was refused to use a microwave at the time. So the green beans, I would take these to work with me when I actually worked in an office. The green beans, like they had a certain smell and they were frozen when I would take them to work. The time I got to work, they would defrost and then I would like open the lid. And sometimes instead of the chicken, I'd have like tilapia fish. So just imagine the smell, like mustard, green beans, tilapia or chicken breast and like maybe some strong smelling sweet potatoes. Yeah, I was definitely not the most popular person in the office. But that was how I ate. And I would eat like 5 meals a day, like bodybuilder status. And that was not pleasant. That was not nourishing myself. I was actually giving myself like the same thing every single day and not thinking about micronutrients. So yes, technically I was tracking my food then and I'm tracking my food now, but it's from completely different perspectives. Now I am on the path to nourish myself, and not just in my body, it's also in my mind, in my lifestyle. And I cannot tell you how many people are like, oh, how do you get to look like that? Or why do you eat like that? Or you're strong. And I'm like, okay. I think it's kind of weird sometimes because to me this is just like normal and I've been nourishing myself for so long that I feel very healthy on the inside. So for me it's about that feeling of well-being, that feeling of just having energy to do what I want to do. So nourishing yourself, it's not just about what you eat either. It's approaching your life and your work from the mindset of how you can take better care of yourself. This also guides your decisions and your actions and what you're enjoying in life. And I actually have a question in my habit tracker that requires me to write down one thing that I did that day to love myself. So a lot of times if it's surfing season, about 90% of the time that is going to be my answer, like I surfed today. Surfing nourishes me in more ways than just about any other activity, as I get to play, it's exercise, sunshine, ocean, grounding, outdoors, people, dancing. It's because I'm doing all of the things that I love the most all in one activity. When you discover your most nourishing activity, you can then build a lifestyle around that activity and stop feeling guilty when you prioritize it in your life. So prioritize nourishing yourself. It also helps you to stay very balanced. And I believe that the world would be such a happier place if more of us actually found and actually did nourishing things for ourselves every single day. It could be as simple as curling up in your favorite blanket with a steaming mug of coffee on a crisp winter morning. or going out for a girls' night with your friends to see the latest chick flick. Figure out what makes you feel that you're taking care of yourself and makes you a healthier and happier person. Then it's all about nourishing yourself on a regular basis. And the beautiful thing about nourishing yourself is it doesn't always have to be the same thing. You can do different things to nourish yourself. So pay attention, because as our lives change, as the seasons change, there are different things that we want to do and different things feel nourishing. So be open to changing these up. All right, let's get to G is for Gutsy. So, okay, I know. I just told you to be careful about taking too much risk. Don't take action that you didn't think about. And now I'm saying it's time to get gutsy. Okay, we've been building here. So the mindfulness allows us to tune into our internal landscape. It helps us get clear on what we want to do next. That leads us to deciding on the next action step to take. So we know where we are channeling our action. And then before we get too caught up in all that action, we remember that it's important to nourish ourselves to keep our mind and body balanced. So that gives us a really firm foundation to work from. When you have those three things in place before you get gutsy, you know that you're standing on solid ground. It's like a really good foundation. So I think of gutsy humans as people who realize that they must make a change, because whatever it is that they're doing now, they're like, it's not exactly where it needs to be. So they understand the risk that is inherent to where they want to go. But the thing is, gutsy is not being rash. It's not being irrational. It's not going beyond your skill level. There's nothing thoughtless about making a gutsy decision or an ambitious move if you know where you want to go. So when I think of gutsy, the first image that always comes to mind for me is a big wave surfer. And this big wave surfer is preparing to paddle out to catch some massive waves at Waimea Bay, one of the iconic big wave surf spots on the North Shore of Oahu. So big wave surfers are really not like the rest of us who feel like we're taking the drop when it's a foot or two overhead, as they charge faces that are like 20 foot tall. So like imagine like three tall humans stacked on top of each other. I mean, that's a big wave. So gutsy is really core to who they are. But it did require them to practice for years in very tough, challenging conditions. They have to go through massive wipeouts. They go through this thing called surf apnea training, which helps train you what to do underwater when you're getting thrashed around. They learn how to harness speed. They learn water safety to prepare for those few big swells that hit our shores during the winter. So they do a lot of preparation. Gutsy is not stupid. It is not somebody that has never surfed before or surfed a few times and thinks they're an expert, attempting to paddle out clueless into a gnarly rip current out to a double overhead situation because they think they're being brave, but they truly do not understand the ocean. I see gutsy as calculated. Gutsy is knowing the risk. It's preparing for everything that can go wrong, because at some point it does go wrong. When you're in the ocean, you take enough chances. Once in a while, you're going to deal with some wipeouts. You're going to deal with a broken board. You're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to have to know what to do in that moment. So being prepared for that 20-foot drop down the face of a monster wave requires a lot of guts, but a lot of preparation. And I think our culture often celebrates like these gutsy success stories when people actually make the wave. But how many gutsy people actually go over the falls, barely survive a wipeout, or nearly drown because they made one tiny mistake that cascaded into like a gnarly near-death experience? So gutsiness has to be calculated, because it can easily get out of hand if we do take unnecessary risks or we are not doing our due diligence. So for me, I am not a very experienced surfer. I started learning to surf in my 30s. So before I head out for a surf, I am really, really careful. I look at the wind, I look at the wave, I look at the swell in the surf report. I spend a lot of time watching the surf cams before I ever drive to the beach to assess the conditions in real life. Then again, at that point in time, again, I look at the current to see if it's too strong. Are the conditions above my skill level? Can I safely paddle out? Am I going to get stuck in a spot and get smashed into the rocks? So then I have to make another decision whether to paddle out or not. And I have to make sure that it's safe. So as I gain experience in the water, though, I'm going to become a little bit more gutsy over time, because I will have had a lot of reps and ridden more waves in a lot of different conditions. So I have surfing friends who actually take a very different approach than I do, because they have decades of experience paddling out to all kinds of different breaks, and they don't have to think so hard about where they want to surf and when. And why is that? It's because they actually understand what the conditions are like. They can just take a quick look at the buoy, the conditions, and they can paddle out from like some really cool secret local spots because they have a lot more ocean awareness than I do. So being gutsy is very individual. What would be gutsy to you and me will look very different. And I might think I was gutsy to relocate from Chicago to Hawaii, while someone who serves in the military is accustomed to making moves every few years based on where they and their partner are stationed next. So they have developed an adaptability, resilience to living in a variety of different locations. And this ability to move anywhere, anytime is crucial to their line of work. So keep in mind, like what feels gutsy to you, what feels gutsy or looks gutsy to other people. You don't have to compare yourself. That's not what this is about. If you don't think you're gutsy enough, think again. You're probably a lot more gutsy in more areas than you give yourself credit for. And gutsiness is a skill. You can develop it over time with the right type of practice. So if you want to get a little bit more gutsy in life, one of the best ways to do that is learn a new skill, take on a side hustle, or even submit that resume for a dream job. So the more you do it, the easier it gets. All right, that brings us to O is for opportunity. So who doesn't love a good opportunity? I think of opportunity a lot of times since I'm exposed to marketing and sales and I work with a lot of business development professionals. I think about opportunity as, dollars. There's somebody who wants to buy what I have to sell. And we all want to be ready for that next opportunity to come our way. And sometimes we have to work really, really hard to get opportunity. Other times it seems to come right to us. And when you get your mango recipe right, you actually front load with that mindfulness. You start taking action. You nourish your brain and body. You get that little bit of gutsy going on. And then you revel in the opportunities that come as a result. Because when you put in the work, when you've done all of that thought, when you're taking care of yourself, when you're getting gutsy, when you're trying things, when you're taking action, all of that does lead to opportunity as a result. And so it's just like planting a mango seed. So you expect to get a mango tree sapling that turns into like this big, thick, healthy mango tree that has fruit probably a decade later though. So the same applies to when you're building a business, when you're creating a family, when you're learning any type of new skill. You actually have to start as soon as you know you're ready, or you'll never get a mango. But you don't expect, baskets full of mangoes when the tree is just like a 2-year-old. So keep in mind that you can actually also accidentally plant opportunities. So when it comes to mangoes, it's funny because every single summer season, our mango tree that is here, it drops at least 15 to 20% of its mangoes on the ground. So we can't catch them all fast enough because they're bruised, they're overripe, they're underripe, or for some reason just not fit for human consumption. And so a very small percentage of those mangoes that actually end up underneath the tree, we don't pick them all up. Like sometimes there's, a few that just kind of get stuffed in the ground. They get buried somewhere. A gardener steps on it. There's a patch of dirt there. And so every single season, just a little bit after mango season, after the mangoes have fallen, you will see like some sapling little mango trees sprouting in our backyard. Since we don't have space for them anywhere else, we have to pull them out. But each of them, every time I look at them, I'm like, they each have the potential to grow into a big, healthy tree. So those are accidental mango seeds being planted. So you may realize that you're the recipient of an opportunity that feels a little bit accidental sometimes, but don't expect them. But when they do happen, pay attention because that could be a flourishing mango tree that is showing up in your life. When you plant enough seeds, one is bound to grow. And my dad used to say that to me when I was dating, and I probably shouldn't go there. But that's what he would say to all my serious boyfriends. Okay, moving on. So I like to honor each and every opportunity. When you value the opportunities that come your way and you look at them for what they are, it's really exciting sometimes and surprising to see what comes your way. And sometimes you may find you get too many. Like you may have all these little sapling mango trees. You're like, I don't have enough space for all of them. But just, I think, appreciate the opportunities when they come your way and then figure out which ones are a heck yeah and which ones are like a heck no, because you can otherwise be pulled in too many directions. You can't nurture all the mango trees. So pick the ones that you really like, that are in a good location, that seem to be the right fit. And you will know which opportunities are going to be the best fit because, again, you were mindful, You were paying attention. You took action in the right direction. You know that you're not going to agree to every opportunity that comes your way. And you are going for those high value, high leverage opportunities, just kind of letting the rest go. So keep that in mind. As you start living the Mango way, opportunities are going to come. And pay attention which opportunities are right in front of you. Sometimes we don't even see them. If you've been recognizing them, great. Acknowledge them, pay attention. And when you start believing that opportunities are going to come your way, you're going to actually notice a little bit of a shift in your perspective. And I call this like being an opportunity spotter. It's like looking for all those mango saplings on the ground. Unless you're intentionally looking for those special little leaves, you're not going to spot them. You have to pay attention with a bit of expectation that you'll find what you're looking for. So again, mango is M is for mindful, A is for action, N is for nourish, G is for gutsy, and O is for opportunity. So I hope you enjoyed the fun little acronym that we went through today, and I'm curious to hear how you are living the Mango way. Like, what's going on for you right now? Are there certain opportunities that you're excited about? Are you thinking about taking action in a specific direction? Are you working on mindfulness at this point in time? And looking for ways to nourish yourself more, or maybe even get a little bit more gutsy. So DM me on Instagram to share your take on the topic. And I'm at Mango Effect Podcast. And let's encourage and inspire each other this week. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the Mango Effect Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And again, if you love the podcast, I would love it if you decided to leave a 5-star review for the show because it helps us find new listeners and also will help us as we grow. All right, that's it for today. I will talk with you in the next episode. Bye for now.